All right. Daniel Costanza, Coach Costanza of St. Mary's College out in California. How are you doing today? Welcome to the Baseball Forward podcast, sir.
I'm doing well. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm excited to talk and learn and go forward.
Heck yeah. Well, we were talking offline, Coach, just as we joined, and I'm like, man, I like that St. Mary's college hat. I feel like St. Mary's is slept on in terms of logos and colors.
Yeah.
I had a buddy that I played with in the Northwoods League back in 2000. Hey, and I would be remiss if I didn't say shout out to Tim Spooner and
Yeah.
Johnny Grand Slam Guthrie of St.
Yes.
Mary's College. I played with them out in the Northwoods, but St. Mary's, man, I'm loving having you on. So tell me a little bit about you're at St. Mary's right now. What are you guys in the midst of? Has fall baseball started? What's going on at St. Mary's right now?
Yeah. First of all, you're absolutely correct. It's a sleeping giant. It's a wonderful place to go. It's an awesome place to be a student athlete. We always tell our recruits and their families it's a place that there's not a lot of distractions. It's for serious people that want to be good at baseball and want to be great students and get an awesome life insurance policy with a phenomenal degree. So it's a beautiful place. It's special to me. My mom graduated from St. Mary's. Actually, I went to school there as a student before I transferred to York College, which is actually where I ended up playing my last couple years. And actually, my wife and I were married in the chapel there, which is
No
so
way.
it's a very special place to me. And I was really excited to come back with Coach Valenzuela. So where we're at currently, we're in what we call individuals. So we're in our 8-hour segment because we're very fortunate with weather. We get to spend the first like 5.5 weeks doing small group work. So actually our pitchers threw their very first bullpens, 20 pitch fastball pens yesterday. We're doing 30 to 40 minutes individual segments pretty much every day with our guys, either whether from a position player standpoint, that's either a defensive indo or an offensive indo. So this is where we get to know them as people. This is where we get to kind of individualize their skill sets. And then for us, we have a big new group of guys. So it's a lot of learning about them and kind of managing the learning who they are, what makes them tick, but also trying to implement some foundational pieces for our program moving forward, whether it's with me, with the infielders, kind of what our foundation is as a defense. And then obviously offensively, what our offensive foundations are going to be and kind of what we're going to build our program on. And because there's a lot of guys in a lot of different places. Some guys, this is their second year. Some guys are seniors. A lot of our guys are new, especially on the offensive side. We have a lot of young hitters coming in. So it's kind of cool to get to mesh them and jumble them up and get in the trenches with them. So it's cool.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I loved this time of year as a player and like as a coach, as an infielding guy, as a hitting guy, when you get this new group in, like what I know you recruited the guys and I know you have for the most part you have the guys in here that you want, but what are you looking for in the fall? Like as an infielder, like what are you looking for out of them? Are we looking for like growth and development? Are you looking for kind of confirmation about what you recruited these guys on? Talk me through some of that.
Man, that's a good question. Obviously, I feel like growth and development is the biggest part, but more importantly, in the fall, at least for me with the infielders, the two most important things are competitiveness, right?
Mm,
Like, are they able to handle failure and keep moving forward? I think in today's day and age, especially with young players, a lot of them haven't really failed until they get in that environment and they're around the very best players on every team they've ever been. So I think that walking in the door and being around that every day, being able to handle that failure, being around really good players, I put a lot of stock in the players that are able to do that and keep pushing forward. And then obviously coachability. And what I mean by coachability is, are you able to take instruction? Are you able to do something you've been asked to try? And if it works, be able to implement it in your game. And if it doesn't work, or maybe that's not the right feel, or doesn't make you feel comfortable, are we able to come up with new ways to learn to kind of get to the right end goal? Does that make sense? So
absolutely.
coachability is huge for me because everybody's different, right? Some people need to hear it, some people need to see it, some people need to do it, some people need to do it 100 times before
Yep.
something sinks in. Um, So are you the type of player that when a coach asks you, hey man, I think that you have a deficiency here. I think that we need to get you to move a little bit better, or, try this with your footwork. Are you able to take that and try it and implement it? Or are you the kind of guy that as soon as something gets hard, you go right back to what was comfortable, And I
Mm,
think the coachability part of it is a big deal, and I think that when you're going through the recruiting process, talking to their high school coaches, talking to some of their travel ball coaches, even talking to other high school coaches in their leagues,
mm.
or their JC leagues that coached against them, you can get a really good feel as to what type of player you're getting. You know what I mean? Because nobody should ever be a finished product. You look at these major league players in all types of different sports, and they're always adjusting. They're always making improvements. They're always looking for that new edge that's going to make them better. And so, those are the type of players that you want to build around. Somebody that's always hungry to learn. And frankly, us as coaches should be like that too, right? I always feel like I don't have all the answers. I'm never going to have all the answers. The game's always
Amen.
evolving. The players are evolving. I mean, it's a totally different world now with the players of today than it was even when I was playing. I feel like I'm a young coach, but a lot of these kids have learned a lot from social media, right? A lot of their offense and defensive things that they do has come from videos that they watch of their favorite players. And so how am I as a coach going to be able to take that kind of what I know about kids to get today and be able to give them a platform to improve? And that's the most important thing as a coach. It's not about what I know or what we know. It's
Mm.
about what we can get them to improve on and understand. And that's kind of the approach that we take. So when you talk about regards of new players, it's a lot about learning about them as people and what makes them tick, and then finding ways to help them grow, because if we can do that and build great relationships with them, then the learning process for them is way better. And we may
Man,
not
that's
get to every one of them, because everybody's different. We may not get to them year one, but I think if you keep chugging along down that road and they feel like you care, then you will eventually get there and they're going to grow. And that's kind of the what we're going to build. That's what we as a program are going to hang our hat on: recruiting and developing. So
heck yeah. I love that. Talking with Daniel Costanza, St. Mary's College assistant coach here. Um, man, St. Mary's to me, you said it earlier, sleeping giant. Guys, the West Coast Conference, like like just call it what it is. In my opinion, I feel like I'm a baseball aficionado. I'm
yeah,
joking, but this is some really good stinking baseball. It's some of the best baseball in the country. You guys are recruiting. I'm curious how you and Coach Valenzuela like handle your recruiting. Like, do you go in knowing that we want high school guys, we want a mix of transfer guys, we want JUCO guys? What's kind of your philosophy on recruiting at St. Mary's?
it's a great question. Obviously, it's morphed and evolved. Coach Valenzuela and I have been together. This will be our 12th season now. So
Wow.
it's evolved, right? Early on in our career, it was very aggressive on young players, freshmen and sophomores, and then there were some rule changes. And so now we're what I would say for us, trying to take it a little bit slower, be a little bit more diligent, because the game has evolved into much older players, right? Transfer
Yep.
portal, JC. We've been a part of some recruiting classes that were very, very JC heavy. And frankly, those years weren't our best. They weren't our favorite to be around. It was really difficult to build a culture. Didn't quite fit us as coaches. So I think now we've morphed more into kind of a happy medium, I would say, to where we're always going to try and build our programs from within with the very, very best and talented high school players, starting with the ones in our own backyard, right? At St. Mary's College, we're right in the heart of the Bay Area, where I feel like there's unbelievable baseball being played at the high school level and at the junior college level. So I think if you look at our recruiting classes and what we're going to try and do, we're going to try and build from within with really talented high school players. And then we're going to supplement with junior college and the transfer portal. Our current class was very high school heavy, but we went out and were able to get three JC guys and three portal guys. So that's a good mix of some older guys that have been around, that have experience, that we felt like we needed from a recruiting class that lost a lot of older guys. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that's, and I say that now, and next year may be totally different. I don't
Yeah.
know. We're always open to change and evolve. But I feel like the one thing that can't change is having a really, really strong culture. And that comes from within. There's no quick fix. you hear Nick Saban was talk about the microwave fix or whatever it is,
Yep.
and I thought that was a unique term. But I feel like our culture has to be built from within, and it has to be built with kids that are in our program for 3 and 4 years. And the scary part is, if we do our jobs really well, some of our kids may leave. It's happened almost every year. But I think that just provides opportunities for other players in your program to step up and do things that maybe they didn't do the year before, and
Sure.
I use myself as an example. I didn't have my best year. I wasn't, I played at York College, and I had an unbelievable experience. I played in a regional, and I played for Nick Harlan, who's now the head coach of Central Arkansas. And I feel is one of the very best head coaches and leaders that there are, but I didn't come into my own until I was a junior, my junior year. So I think everybody develops at different times. And that's the fun of being a coach. For every player that thinks the grass is greener on the other side and wants something different, there's another guy hungry to come in and replace them. And so that part is exciting to me, and I enjoy that part. And so from a recruiting landscape, I feel like we're always gonna build from within. And because I lived in LA for 4 years, my wife and I, and Coach Valenzuela is from the LA and San Diego area. I think that we will utilize recruiting California very heavily, especially at the high school ranks, and supplement with junior college and portal as needed. And I think
Yep.
that formula works well for us. It has in the past. So
I love it. You said something to me, or you said culture, and uh, from my observation of where I sit in the game at this point, I am. If I was giving advice to young guys through the recruiting process, to me, when you talk about culture, it's consistency, stability. What I see out of you and Coach Valenzuela, man, you guys have been together for 12 years. Like, that is incredibly consistent. That is incredibly stable. And if I'm a kid listening to this, if I'm a recruit listening to this, that's something that I'm paying attention to, because that tells me that you guys have this, you as coaches have a culture within yourself. I mean, talk to me about the stability of having that as your coaching core.
Well, first of all, I'm very lucky to work for a head coach that's as awesome as Coach Valenzuela. Not only as a pitching coach and a head coach and a leader, but also as a family man and a person.
Mm,
He's one of my mentors. I feel like a lot of the success I've had as a coach comes from having really good mentors. I mentioned Nick Harlan. My high school coach, David Jeans, was the head coach at De La Salle. These people have been unbelievable mentors for me. And then I had an opportunity to work for Coach Valenzuela, and I can't think of anybody better to work for. I myself have 2 young kids now. My son Damiano is 2, and my daughter Ellie is 1. And so it's like it's chaos in my house all the time. And so to work for somebody, Coach Valenzuela is a family man. He has 3 kids, and so it's a really good example. And then obviously I think our personalities and our personalities work well together, and also I feel like he allows me to be myself and trust me to do my job. And I feel like I've earned that over the course of 12 years. And I try and grow as a coach every year, and he's an unbelievable mentor to do that. Obviously he's accomplished a lot of things that I want to accomplish in my life. But at the same time, I know that it's important to be where your feet are, and try and do the very best job for the players that we have in our program. And I think that I myself feel like I'm a very loyal guy, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity. I started at St. Mary's. He hired me right out of Cal State East Bay as a 22-year-old. I was volunteering at East Bay while I was getting my master's at the time, and hired me as his director of operations, and kind of worked my way up from there into the volunteer and then into the paid roles, and went down to Long Beach for 4 years, I had an unbelievable experience at Long Beach State. That's a great school. It's a really fun place to coach. Obviously, you mentioned the WCC being a great baseball conference. The Big West is an unbelievable baseball conference. I learned a ton about different styles of baseball, how to coach, different. I was at Long Beach. You're right in the heart of Southern California recruiting, and so in order to cut your teeth down there, you have to be really good. And I learned a ton from some really, really good coaches in that conference as well. And now being back at St. Mary's, I feel very lucky and fortunate to have this opportunity and to work for an unbelievable boss. So it's pretty, I feel lucky.
Man, I love hearing that. Talking with Daniel Costanza, St. Mary's College, here on the Baseball Forward podcast. Um, you've experienced a lot as a player, as a coach. You've been around. You've seen the game at many, 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 many levels. Um, I'm curious. what is, if you were going to give yourself advice, a younger version of yourself advice in the game of baseball, where you sit now, what advice would you have given yourself as you were coming up?
Man, honestly, strength conditioning. And
Mm.
I noticed this now when high school kids, when I went from high school to college, when you got into the weight room, it was teaching how to lift, how to do
Mhm.
certain moves, like how to deadlift. This is how you squat. This is how you power clean. This is how you do all these things, because nobody really knew. You didn't really lift in high school. You didn't really lift, until you were much older. Now your incoming high school guys, a lot of them could teach a clinic on how to lift weights and what form looks like and how to be safe while doing it, and they're being taught this at a much younger age. They're taking weightlifting classes in high school. So to me, the physicality of it has changed.
Mm.
And that is something that it is totally in a young man's control, right? How much sweat equity you put in that weight room, right? And you don't have to be the tallest guy to be strong. You don't have to be the tallest guy to understand nutrition and understand how to eat. For a lot of guys, either be working the right way in the weight room to have their body look right. And for a lot of guys, especially, high school athletes, it's how I can get heavier and pack on,
Yep.
some really good weight. And we talked to our guys about that. But that in the last 15 years has changed dramatically from when I was playing. And if I were to talk to my younger self, I wish I was ahead of that curve,
Yeah.
because it's definitely grown into. Nowadays, there's an expectation when you come in out of high school into any level of college baseball, let alone the Division I level, that the physicality part of it, the weightlifting part of it, the speed and agility part of it, you have to have a baseline that's going to allow you to be competitive right away. So
Yeah.
that's where I would go with that. I mean,
It,
that's
it
when you walk
it's
out on the
interesting.
field, that's the first thing you see.
Yeah, and that's interesting to hear because, like, I feel like I hear that a lot, and I witness it. I see it with my own eyeballs. Man, I'll go out and watch, a Division I baseball game. Heck, dude, I'll go out and watch a Division II game, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is not what they looked like back in the day. Is it is that something that you think most high school kids don't understand? Is like how physical the game really has become?
Man, like I would say I would almost argue that they have a better understanding of how physical they need to be. Whether or not they're able to get there is one thing,
Mm.
but it's almost like the how to play the game of baseball, the nuances of it is actually where they're behind. Base running, cuts and relays, pop fly,
Wow.
all those little things of how, you talk about one run games, like in football, it's one score game. Situational football is the difference between making the playoffs a lot of times and being a good team. It's the same thing in baseball. How many one run games are you going to win because you're going to execute, because you make a great one out base running decision, because you're not getting into your turn on a ball in the infield, right? All these little things. I feel like that the nuances of how to play the game are where a lot of guys are behind. And that's simply driven, I think that's driven by high school recruiting and people playing so many games that they don't practice.
Wow.
So I think that that's where a lot of the young guys are behind, and the aptitude of how to learn how to play the game of baseball, how to situationally pitch, right? Like there's times where you don't need to pitch for a strikeout, where we need a ground ball in a one run game, and you get behind and you give up a double and just things like that. I think the understanding part of it, the maturation part of it is huge. Whereas I think now there's baseball is so visible, college baseball is so visible. You can go on ESPN Plus during the season and you could be watching games from 9 in the morning until 9 o'clock at night. And kids should be sitting on there watching. The one thing you can see is how physical those guys look, how they move, how athletic they are. Shortstops at this level, they don't make errors. They don't.
Mhm.
Like good shortstops, they don't make errors. They always know where to be. They know how to play. And so you can see, if you want to play Division I baseball, if you want to play college baseball, you could turn on the TV and watch a bunch of it. But it's the nuances of being able to see the game from within is where I think some of these young kids are behind. And simply, I'm not going to say it's their fault. A lot of it comes from them playing too much in a showcase type setting, in a setting where it's not competitive, right? Where even when
Mm.
you go to some of these big tournaments, a lot of them are there to showcase themselves and try and show their tools and be recruited. And that's totally okay too. But they don't necessarily know how to play to win. And I think that is a big gap when you step onto a Division I program and the other half of the roster is trying to win a championship, and they have 1 and 2 and 3 years into understanding the game of baseball and the nuances that it takes to win. And I think that there's a learning curve there for sure.
Wow, that's interesting. So out on the recruiting trail, when you're out watching guys, is it is it is it easier now to see, like, because I feel like, man, you hit something like the showcase player. I mean, we all kind of understand what that is. Is it easier to identify those just dirt bags that you're like, man, I want that dude on my team versus the showcase player? And when you're out there watching, is that what you're looking for? Is that like part of the culture stuff that you were talking about? Is getting those guys that know the game, that are dirt bags, that love the game, that are obsessed with the game? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's a great question because you got to find a happy medium. When you're out recruiting, I feel like you have to try and put yourself in the recruit's shoes. Like it's never been harder to be a Division I recruit. So a lot of these young men are trying to do things to separate themselves on the field, right? And so it's not fair to go out and evaluate a guy who's trying to show you what he can do and expect him to know everything as well, right? So I think the beauty of it comes from trying to find the very best player on the field at all times. Like when I go out and recruit, if I watch pitcher, if I'm watching a hitter, if I'm just going out to watch a game, I want to find the very best player on the field at all times. And it doesn't matter, like physicality is a big part of that, right? But there's also, smaller guys that play above their means that are big and strong. You probably can't have a whole roster of those, but I've had a lot of players that aren't the biggest guys on the field that are all conference players, and so and they were the best players on the field at all times. They just jump out, if you're out there looking for it and you find it. So, I think high school baseball is a huge tell, right? Because high school coaches, I give them a lot of credit. A lot of them do it because they love to coach and they want to teach and they want to provide their high school team and their high school players the best opportunity to learn, right? And those guys aren't getting paid to be out there. They're out there because they love it, right? So they are out there to teach and win. They have a competitive nature, so they're trying to instill that in their players. So a lot of the players that we're trying to recruit are all conference high school players, all region high school players, come from winning programs. I think winning is a skill, and it's an expectation that a young man has. And if they're in a winning high school program year in and year out, that they don't know how to lose, right? I always say this: I'm a winner. I've won everywhere that I've been. I won in high school. I won championships. I won in college. We went to regionals. I won at Cal State East Bay when we were there. I coached for Coach Bob Ralston, who was just inducted into the Arizona Hall of Fame. Legendary coach out here in the Bay Area. Then I went to St. Mary's. We won. At Long Beach, we won. Like, I feel like if you're recruiting players from winning programs, that winning culture is going to grow from within. Obviously, it starts at the top with the coaching staff, teaching people how to win, how to live their life, and go about their days in a championship manner every day, because that's also part of it. But when it comes to recruiting, you can go out and recruit players from winning programs, and that is, something that you want all of your players being around. And so for me, that's really important. Finding the very best player on the field that comes from winning programs, that is a winner himself as far as all conference, all region, good numbers, and to me, that stuff's really important. And to us, I should say.
Man, that's really, really good stuff. And I know some guys can't control the winning, right? And I know you wouldn't exclude those guys. So I'm
Right.
curious your take on, like, what does winning look like to you? Like if I'm just a human, I'm being a human and
Yes.
I'm living my life. What does winning as a human look like to Coach Costanza at St. Mary's College?
Man, doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you like it or not. That is a staple in our program. And that's something that Coach Valenzuela talks about on the very first day with our players. That will stick with me forever. That, and then I live by the motto of success favors the well prepared. And when I was a young coach, I worked with Coach Matt Fontino, who is the associate head coach of Santa Barbara, and all they do is win all the time and produce good players. And he said that to me as a young coach, and that has stuck with me forever. So if I had to say two things that, because you're right, you could be on a high school program that maybe doesn't win a lot of championships, maybe doesn't have as many, is a public school, maybe doesn't have as many good players, but you could tell who the winner in that program is because they go about their business, no matter the score, the right way. So I would say those are two things: do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, whether you like it or not. And for me, that covers so many basics as to what a player in your program should be living his life right: going to class, doing their homework, talking with teachers, being proactive, being diligent about what they do on the field, making sure that they're up early at weights, doing all those little things that set you up to deserve success. And then I live by the motto: success favors the well prepared. So those that are planning out their days, that are eating correctly, for us as coaches, having a plan when we're running individuals, communicating well with our players so that they're not lost, having structure. I think all of that are barometers that lead to success, I should say. And so those are the two things that have really I try to live my life by, that are kind of give you a window's view into what success should look like, and winning, and where winning comes from.
It's crazy just sitting back and getting the opportunity to talk to so many quality men and coaches. I feel thankful for that because I'm soaking it all up. And I hear just a consistency of discipline and daily habits and routine. And it didn't hit me as a player, you know, I guess I want young men to hear this, and I want them to realize that the greatness and the success that you're wanting is closer than you realize because of the daily discipline that maybe in the habits that you implement into your life. Is that a fair comment to say?
Absolutely. Especially as kids get older, and it's funny, the older they get, the smaller the talent gap gets, right?
Mm,
So how are players doing little things to give themselves an edge, right? And a Division One baseball player gets 150, 180, 200 at bats. Well, the difference between hitting 300 and 280 could be 8 hits in a season, right?
wow.
Well, maybe that's a hard 90. Maybe that's, having a little better focus in the hole, watching the way that pitcher is pitching somebody similar to you. Maybe that's when you are asked to execute a drag bunt to move a runner over. Maybe your drag bunt's a little bit better and you steal 3 hits a year out of a drag bunt. Or when you have a runner at second base and you're asked to hit a backside ground ball, you do it, and it takes 900 hops to get through the infield, and you get a hit out of that because you're trying to do the right thing. So I feel like the discipline and structure that it takes to be good on the field starts with the way that you live your life off the field, right? And I'm not perfect. Please don't think that I am perfect by any means. I'm trying, and like I said, I have 202 right now, so I feel like I'm always playing catch up at home, trying to figure out where my kids' schedules are changing, and dealing with all the trying to be the very best dad and husband. My
Sure.
wife is a saint, Jenna, and she is the glue that holds our family together, and I love her to death. And I'm very fortunate to have a wife that is so supportive and awesome, and here for me. And we've been together 8 years, been married 6, so she knows me pretty well and keeps me on my toes. And so please, I'm by no means perfect, I promise
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But from a discipline and structure standpoint, I try to do my best to live like that as much as our players do. And I'm not perfect, but we're all trying to grow. And I tell them that too, like, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm gonna say something that I shouldn't say probably, or I'm gonna be frustrated, and you're gonna see it on me. I don't hide my emotions well as a coach. I'm Italian. I never really have. So that's something that I'm working on, and I have that conversation with our guys. So I think everybody has areas that they're trying to improve, myself included. I think it's important to be vulnerable as a coach. I'm not perfect. I'm not going to try to be. I talk about it in the recruiting process. Hey, for our guys that decide to come here, they come here because they want to be coached, and they want to be coached hard, and they want to be coached tough. And that's Coach Valenzuela and myself. We have very, very high standards for what we want in our program. And part of my job is to live up to those Stanford standards as a person myself, so I'm always trying to do that as well.
I love hearing that. I mean, that's what it's all about, is self-improvement. Your wife, she probably knows the game at a pretty high level at this point. Yes.
You know what? She is always still learning. My wife did not play a lot of sports growing up. She was a dancer. She worked in interior design, so she didn't know much about baseball at all. And frankly, for me, It really works for us because a lot of times the very last thing I want to come home and talk to my wife about is baseball and what
There you
I've,
go.
what I've been doing all day. So she's very supportive. She comes out to games. But my family typically gets to educate her when she comes to games about kind of things that are happening because I try very much to separate. I try not to bring the game and my work life home with me.
Yep,
I don't
I
have
get it.
enough emotional quotient to have those conversations with her. We talk about pretty much everything other than baseball.
That you're a smart man,
Yeah,
smart man.
it works for
Um,
us so far.
that does it feel like you're living a dream? I mean, because I remember just like literally, and I feel so thankful to do what I do, but I remember being like in middle school and high school and being like, I am in love with this game and I want to do it forever and I want to be around it. And I remember thinking, because I grew up on the Air Force Academy, and I remember thinking, man, if I could coach, and how much fun it would be to just be in that college environment and around the youth and the energy of all the other athletics going on. Coach Costanza at St. Mary's, does it feel like kind of like you're living a dream as a coach where you're at right now?
100%. 100%. Like I started playing, I was when I was 4. Back in the days when you didn't even know first base was to the right, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I would hit it and run to third. Like there's videos of me doing that, I think, which is probably embarrassing. But and then your entire drive from like middle school all the way is to play professionally, right? And
Yep.
that was my dream and goal, and I was nowhere near talented enough to do that, but I poured my heart and soul into my college career and got every ounce out of it that I could, and I would not change that for the world. The person that it's made me, dealing with failure and structure has taught me how to deal with hard things in life. And I think that college athletics uniquely prepares their student athletes to deal with the hardships of being an adult. It's very hard to be an adult, especially
Mm,
in today's day and age. So I think that that part of it has been unique, and I try and instill that in our players all the time. That they think it's hard being a college athlete. Wait till you have bills to pay and
yep.
families to support and a roof over your head, and taxes and all these things that you're like, what?
Amen.
Um, so I wouldn't change that for the world. I got my undergraduate degree was in biology, because I thought that maybe I wanted to be a dentist. And then when I graduated and I thought a little bit harder, I was like, there's absolutely no way I can be in an office every day. It's just not who I am.
Mm,
And I ended up getting my master's and going right into coaching after that. And I started it 1 year, and it took about a week to figure out that that's what I wanted to do. And I was going to try and pave my way in that world, however I could. So do I feel fortunate? Absolutely. I do. I'm lucky enough to work with, awesome young men in our program every day. They're fun to be around. They want to learn. They have a lot of the same passions that I did as a player, as a person, and they have a lot of the same goals. And that's one of the great things about St. Mary's College is the young men that are attracted, and want to be a part of that program. They're wired for success. They surround themselves with successful people. And no matter what they do afterwards, whether it's Corbin Burns, playing in the big leagues, about to hit arbitration and make life-changing money, after hopefully winning a World Series, or some of our guys that have gone on to be lawyers and doctors and accountants, whatever they do, they're successful at, and they have a unbelievable foundation for how they're going to move forward in life. And I think that that's what's really special about this place and the type of person that it creates afterwards. So,
man, I just again, I go back to the beginning of this conversation, and two really, really, really good dudes that I got to play with were from St. Mary's, and they left this impression on me. And I'm like, heck yeah, I got love for St. Mary's. And then obviously, I the brand of baseball you guys play, it's obvious at this point. I'm curious. Talking with Daniel Costanza on the Baseball Forward podcast today, Coach Costanza. A couple more questions here. I'm curious. Um, to this question, how will playing college baseball, regardless of the level, but how will playing college baseball change a young man's life?
man, playing college baseball is hard. It's really hard. Nowadays, it's really hard to play as a freshman. So a lot of people have to be patient, have to diligently work, have to learn. And not many people get right out of college and get that six-figure salary. It's just that's not how life works. It's a lot of being in the trenches. It's a lot of doing things that you don't want to do. It's also a lot of, in my experience, trying to figure out a unique path for yourself as a person, to separate yourself, you know what I mean? And almost advertise yourself. That's a lot of what life is like. That's how you find a spouse, right? You got to separate yourself a little bit. That's how you try and promote yourself within a company, or when you move to a different company, or if you're starting your own company, how am I going to be a boss? How am I going to do all of these things? You know, and I feel like college baseball, especially, but college athletics as a whole, the challenges that you face every day, the competition that you face every day, the failure that you inevitably go through at some point in time allows you the mental strength and fortitude to persevere through tough times. And I think that that experience is unique. You know, there are days for our guys where 6 a.m. weights, class all day, practice, very tired, working hard through it, conditioning, and then study hall. You know what I mean? Their work, it's a lot of times it's 9 to 5. It is a full-time job. And their weekends, they don't have them, you know, at certain times in the year. We're in full practice, right? So you sacrifice a lot being a student athlete to chase this dream that you love, number one, for yourself of playing at the next level, but also as a program, you sacrifice a lot to win championships. It takes a lot of selflessness. And I think that the combination of the struggle, the combination of the sacrifice that you make, and I'm taking this from experience, because I'll tell you what, if you start to have kids, and a lot of people that have young kids will know this, and all the parents that I see on the recruit, that there are sacrifices galore for your children, right?
That's right.
And I think the ability to learn how to do that comes from the sacrifices that you made in college, you know, and I think there are parallels though, for sure. So the struggle, the sacrifice, dealing with failure, I think all of those things build a strong foundation for a young man or young woman as you enter what I call the real world, right? I don't see college as the real world. I don't. It's you know, it's an awesome time. You're learning, you're growing. Yeah, you got to go to school, but that's not even that hard. You know, you go to class, you do your homework, you study, you're going to be fine. Most colleges don't want you to fail, right? They want you to they want to set you up for success. I mean, especially here at St. Mary's, they want to set young men and young women up for success moving forward. And I think that's one very unique thing about St. Mary's in general. But you know, then once you graduate and that's over, and you realize that now my days are dictated by what I want to do, right? How I want to choose to live my life. Well, what's cool is you already got 4 years of a foundation set up for, I got to get up early. I got to take care of myself. I have to time manage. I have to be cohesive. I have to communicate well. All of those things you have to do as an athlete and part of a program. You're already set up for that. You already have that in your DNA. You're not really learning that. You're just learning how to apply it into whatever field you choose to go into. And I think that gives a lot of student athletes a leg up in the real world, which is why a lot of companies like to hire athletes. They have structure, they're communicative, they handle failure, they handle coaching. You know, I mean, nobody is as hard on you as your college coaches, because the expectations are so high, you know, and guess what? You go into the real world and people are trying to make money and feed their families. Those expectations are really high. So being able to deal with pressure, real pressure, I think sets people up for success.
Man, that's really, really well said. I feel like you don't realize the foundation that you're giving yourself in the moment, because you really are most of the time. Most of us that played it had a lot of fun doing it, right?
Oh yeah.
But it's almost like you're not even, you can't slow down enough to realize, holy cow, this is setting me up for success in the future. I'd be curious, man. You have an amazing energy. You have you're very clear on. I want to know who influenced your career. I want to know the reason why you're here. I want to know who made you and who influenced your career, man.
That's easy. That's my parents, man. My parents are unbelievable people. When I was growing up, my dad he ran a community youth center, and he gave back. He did that for 15 years to 16 years, I think, here in Concord. Wow. And he grew this youth center into an unbelievable place that serviced hundreds of kids here, underprivileged youth in the community. And I always truly admired that, you know. And then my mom has worked for Chevron for 26 years,
Wow.
you know, and to be a female executive in a multi-billion-dollar oil conglomerate, and the way that she has had to deal, because when she was growing in that company, it was long before, you know, there were as many female executives as there are now. She had a ton of struggles and, having 4 kids. I'm one of 4. I'm the oldest of 4. So I always admired her work ethic and her leadership in her profession and the way that she grew working for Chevron. She still works for Chevron to this day. And she is a badass. And
That's
I've
awesome.
always admired that from her. And I've tried to live my life in a way as to kind of mirror the two of them. And they always put all 4 of us first. I always tell people I'm the dumb one in my family. My younger brother is an attorney. My second brother is an engineer, and my sister's a doctor. So, like, I coach baseball. I
Wow.
always tell people I'm the dumb one, but I've always admired the way that my parents were able to put their children and their family's needs and wants first, and on the same breath were able to manage and grow their own careers into very, very successful leaders. And I think a big part of that was the way that they interacted with other people, and frankly, the expectations that they put on my brothers and sisters and I, and the way that they challenge us to live our lives and chase our dreams, which I thought was really cool. So those are my biggest influences 100% growing up. I idolized my parents, and I know they weren't in college realms, but they were both coaches in their own way, if you looked at it a certain way. And I always thought that was really cool.
Man, I love hearing that. Shout out to mom and dad of Daniel Costanza and to brothers and sisters, man. That's some
Yeah,
really cool stuff. I love hearing the solid family structure, the nuclear structure. I just think it's amazing how um I mean, you just think about 2 people that your mom and your dad, they grinded their tails off, and
crazy.
they're able to have successful careers and amazing children. Really, really cool stuff. Last
Yeah.
thing I have for you, Coach Costanza. Um, I want this for baseball forward. Our MO is elevating the next generation. Our goal is to move this game on to the next generation. You are a true baseball guy, so I'm curious to get your take on what's your advice to young players coming up in the game. How would you elevate the next generation?
My advice to young players, I got 2 things. Number one, if you have a true passion for playing college baseball and you work as hard as you can, there's almost always an avenue for you to do that. And don't ever lose sight of that. Not everyone's a Division I player in the same breath, but I had an unbelievable experience playing baseball at York College, which 90% of the people on this podcast don't know where that is. And that's okay. Google it. It's a wonderful school. Brian Walt is
Nebraska.
there. He's a great coach. It is in Nebraska. Yeah, you're right. Um, and I would not change that experience for anything. So if you have a true passion of playing college baseball, do it, work your tail off, set a goal, be proactive about it. And in the same breath, I think one of the biggest mistakes in youth sports is forcing young players to play only one sport. I know
Mm,
that growing up, I played a bunch of sports, and I believe that true athleticism comes from the type of movements and coaching and athleticism that you get in playing a lot of different sports. The nature of today is, no, you need to focus on baseball, or no, you need to. I couldn't disagree more. I think it's at least through high school, maybe up to your senior year. I think it's wonderful for players to play as many sports as they can if they have a passion for that, if they want to do that. I think that over the course of time, that helps in being coachable. I think it helps in being athletic. And you know what? Frankly, the kids have more fun. Playing basketball is fun. Playing football to
heck
some
yeah.
extent is fun. Playing
Yep.
soccer is fun. Being on the
Yep.
golf team is fun, right? Like, one thing I wish I was better at is golf. You know what I mean? Especially now in today's day and age, if I could figure out how to not slice that thing, I would have way more fun. Maybe if I did more of that in high school, I'd be better at it. But um, you only get to be in high school one time. You only get to be in college one time. And there's so much more to life than the pressures of, I have to play Division I baseball. And I see so many young men, unfortunately, put unneeded pressure on themselves, where sometimes I'm like, hey, man, that kid's a good athlete. If he took a mental break and was maybe playing basketball or
Oh,
playing soccer, when he came back to baseball, he may be better, but we'll never know. So I think for the youth of today, enjoy playing sports as a whole. Watch
mm,
sports, watch basketball, watch the NBA playoffs, watch football. I love watching football. You can learn a lot from watch college baseball. If you have a passion to play college baseball on a Friday night, turn on ESPN Plus and watch Friday guys go after it. You want to see what real pitching is? Watch those guys get after each other, because you're going to see 5'10" right-handers that are 87 with a slider go 7 scoreless. You're going to see 6'4" left-handers that are 95 go 7 scoreless, maybe get ripped. I don't know. But you're going to see what real baseball at this level looks like. And then it's easy to self-evaluate where you need to improve. And I'll tell you what, some of the very, very best athletes that you're going to see out there were high school quarterbacks, were high school wide receivers, played safety, were played basketball, played soccer, are probably scratch golfers. Like, I think there's a lot that goes into being very diverse when it comes to the way you move and the way that you are coached. Because I tell you what, at least for us, one of the first things you do when we step foot on campus as a freshman is we try and fix the way that you move, and we teach you the game of baseball, and we coach you. You know what I mean? So how are you going to take coaching? How are you going to learn how to implement things into your game? And I think a lot of different things come from a lot of different voices and a lot of different coaches. So to me, those would be my advice for the next generation of athletes coming forward. Wow.
Man, that's really good stuff. Before I let you tell it, because I want the kids out here listening that have interest in St. Mary's College. You got to know more about it. You got to research it. I want you to tell them how to get a hold of you, but I got to put you on record. I got to get one of those hats, Coach.
All right.
So if you can make that happen, I would really appreciate that. But hey, let the kids know, let the audience out there know, if they have interest in St. Mary's College, how would you recommend them getting a hold of you, Coach?
Man, the best way to get a hold of us is our coaching staff has emails address listed on our website. Feel free to email. I always tell kids, we get hundreds and hundreds of emails every day. So make sure that you personalize those things. I think that that's really important, and stay on it. If we don't get back to you on the first one, try again, right? Like I think it's really important for recruits to have their eligibility center number, to have their high school transcripts, to in their emails, to put their high school coach's phone number, their travel ball coach's phone number, to list some of their accolades, maybe post a video. And don't be afraid to send that 3 and 4 times. That's okay, right? Sometimes, when we're going to go out for an event, you send out an email right before you go out. Oh, okay, I'm going to be on that game. Maybe I didn't know you before I got there, but now your name's come across, and now I'm going to remember your name, and I'm going to, he's coming to hit. Okay, I'm going to watch him and see what and all you're trying to accomplish from sending some emails or some text messages is to get somebody to get eyes on you. And then it's your job to showcase yourself and show the type of player that you are. And that's really all that you can do. I think it's important to get to prospect camps. If you have a true interest in a school, there's no better place to get in front of 4 or 5 coaches on that staff than to show up on campus and enjoy a prospect camp. You know what I mean? I think they're affordable. And you get to meet and interact with the coaches. You get to talk to them. You get to see a lot of them. There's some instruction in there. So you get to see what their philosophy is on offense or defense, or what the pitching coach is like. I think those are, for the majority of recruits, those are probably 2 of the very best ways to get your name out there. Be communicative as to where you're going to be playing through email. And then obviously trying to get on campus for some type of a camp if you can.
That's awesome stuff. That is awesome stuff. I want to thank Coach Daniel Costanza. Coach, it was awesome talking to you today. I appreciate you being on the Baseball Forward podcast. And I know we're going to be watching you guys throughout the fall and in the spring. We expect big things from you. Coach Costanza, thank you for joining the Baseball Forward podcast.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. I think what you guys are doing is wonderful. And I'm really happy to help and be a part of it and give back. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Coach. We will see you next time.